Hello, my name's Matthew Harrison. I'm a farming systems scientist at the University of Tasmania. In this webinar we'll look at how to analyse how the effect of irrigation water prices, grain prices and things like seasonal climate outlook, so a very dry season or even a very wet season, how that might affect your use of irrigation water and potential profitability of irrigated crops. So in another webinar I've explained how to use the Optimiser part of WaterCan Profit. I'll include the link for this in the comments below this webinar. In this webinar I'm only going to look at the results. So how do these variables mentioned in the title there impact on crop profitability? So using the Optimiser in WaterCan Profit, we have an example. So it's February. Jane DeFarmer has 40 megalitres of water that she can use to irrigate crops with, and she really wants to know what the most profitable crops are to sow. So in Australia, in the southern hemisphere, in Australia, New Zealand, elsewhere in the southern hemisphere, the winter season is June, July, August. So Jane DeFarmer is wanting to know what crops to sow in autumn so that she can potentially irrigate as crops get into the springtime after winter and it starts to dry off. The seasonal climate outlook at that time of the year is for a moderate season rainfall. In WaterCan Profit you can select a very dry or a very wet season based on long-term climatology. Jane can sow wheat, canola, faba beans or chickpeas on her 50-hectare farm. Her farm is located at Griffith, so the WaterCan Profit takes into account soil details as well as long-term climatology. Griffith is at New South Wales in Australia. For this example, water is $80 a megalitre. What crops should Jane sow to maximise profitability? So we use the Optimiser. It's the centre tab in the Optimiser up the top of the menu. I'll include the link for that below in the comments below this webinar. So I enter all of that data. I run the Optimiser, so I'm not going to show all the inputs. That's in a different webinar. So if we look in the rows here, so we have rain-fed wheat, irrigated canola, rain-fed canola, chickpeas and faba beans. We have all the variables of interest. Now some of these variables are inputs, so prices for grain, for example, I put those in. Yields associated with the given water use, I put those into the Optimiser. So we can see that we've run the Optimiser and the blue columns are the one that the Optimiser recommends that are the most profitable. So it does thousands of combinations under the hood using what's called a differential evolution optimizer, and it comes up with the most profitable combination for all of the grain prices, irrigation water use, for your accounting for your irrigation allocation, accounting for seasonal climate outlook, as well as the size of your farm, but also whether you're more interested in dollars per hectare, which some farmers are, dollars per megalitre, which is usually the case when water is limiting, or even just total profitability. Probably the most interesting thing I think is this bottom row. So it's saying you should be sowing around a quarter of your farm, there's 26% as irrigated canola, the rest as rain-fed canola, a little bit of chickpeas, but that's close enough to nothing. It shows you the profitability associated with them, and if you dig into the numbers you can probably work out why that is. So it's actually saying apply nearly all of your allocated 40 megalitres, 98%, to irrigated canola. But what about if it was a wet season? Because it was a moderate season before. So we go back to the Optimiser, we hit wet, so it's based on tercile, so it's saying over 110 years of climatic data we'll use your wet season distribution. Run the Optimiser again, these are the results that we get. So we're getting now rain-fed canola and irrigated faba beans is the most profitable. So it's saying sow 60% of your farm area, and you can change your farm area, that's just an input parameter in WaterCan Profit. And it's saying sow 40% of your farm area as irrigated faba beans. I think I said irrigated canola before, I meant rain-fed canola. And you can see the profitability associated with them. Faba beans are more profitable, and it's saying use all of your water on faba beans, and as an input you actually put the amount of the minimum and the maximum water applied. So you can see all the other inputs there. What about if water prices doubled? So it was, you might recall it was $80 a megalitre we used at the start. what happens if it was $160 a megalitre? And so you can do similar examples with any other water price. Go back, put it into one of the inputs, rerun the Optimiser. You can see that the water prices have gone up to 160, which is right. Now we see that irrigated canola and rain-fed canola are again the most profitable. So the Optimiser's gone away and done all the combinations underneath the hood, and it said, well, sow 40% of your area as canola, as irrigated canola, and leave the rest as rain-fed canola. And so that we've had that canola result quite a bit. So you might say, well, why would that be? It might be associated with the higher price of canola, $600 a tonne compared with $300 for wheat, for example. It may be because it's a relatively high yield, so it's saying you're getting 4.6 tonne per hectare for an irrigated canola crop compared with only 2.5 for rain-fed wheat, for example. Or it might be associated with other factors. So then we go back and we might say, well, what happens if grain prices change? So what happens instead if wheat prices was a bumper year? Wheat prices increased to $400, and your currency doesn't really matter. In this case, it's Australian dollars. And let's say that canola price decreased to $500. That's actually wrong. That should be 500. What happens if they decrease? So we go back, we rerun the Optimiser, and we can see that the results do change. So just as a check, does it actually pick up the costs that the revised costs that you've put in? Yes, it does. They're actually out of the screen here, but it's actually picked up those grain prices. So we have the yields of irrigated wheat, and you can see by the blue columns it's recommending that all of your allocated irrigation of 40 megalitres be applied to irrigated wheat, which was 1 megalitre per hectare, and that's the total water usage in brackets. It's saying apply all of your irrigated, so 80% of your farm area to irrigated wheat and the remaining 20% to rain-fed wheat. So you can see that the results change quite a lot depending on the inputs. So that's all I really wanted to say for today. There are other YouTube videos that you can look at. If you would like a free copy or a tutorial with WaterCan Profit, just email me on that email there, and happy to go over it together. But that's all for this time, and thanks very much for watching.